So tonight's featured reader is Henry Hughes. And so before I get to his bio, I just want to make a note that Henry probably doesn't even know this. He's very important to the Salem Poetry Project because early on, he needed a sound system, and I had one, and I drove out to Independence, and he paid me $50. I said, okay, well, $50 for this sound system, what am I put it towards? We need to get a podium. So I tossed around looking for a podium for $50, and of course nobody had any. And then I went to the schools, and they were like not interested. But in that journey, Whitaker Middle School says, I just have a podium, so just come down and get the podium. So I got the podium from Whitaker Middle School. I used the $50 to get a logo maker and make this logo. This has been with us since 2016. I had a dream when we were at the Ike Box that the Ike Box fell over because the Ike Box is a little bit shaky anyway, and the only thing standing left in the Ike Box was this podium. Because it's solid steel, it would be the only thing that would be standing in there. So without any further ado, Henry Hughes grew up in Long Island, New York. He has lived in Oregon since 2002, where he teaches literature and writing at Western Oregon University. He is the author of 4 poetry collections, including Men Holding Eggs, which received the Oregon Book Award, and Moist Meridian, which was a finalist for the award. His memoir, Backseat with Fish, was selected as Best of the Year in the Guide to Outdoor Literature. Henry is a regular reviewer for Harvard Review and the editor of the Everyman's Library anthologies, poems about fishing, river poems, and fishing stories. So here is Henry Hughes.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, you're an amazing man, and you are truly the spirit of poetry in Salem, our state's great capital. Thank you for coming out tonight. You've done so much for poetry. And this project, the Salem Poetry Project, has been going on since 2016. And doing it every week, that's fantastic. And so I just love that you're growing poetry right here in town. And thank you. It was great to meet Emily, and Bob. Thanks for helping up tonight. And I look forward to meeting more of you. And it's great to be here. I'm so glad that my small contribution gave rise to such an intricate story. I mean, that alone is worth every penny. And I hope that I can continue to contribute. So this is called Bats in the Classroom. I go around to schools sometimes. I went to Falls City High School last year, and nearby Monmouth, and I do a little poetry lesson in the class. And I love one of the stories that the kids tell. And actually, while we were in the room, a bat flew into the room. And what do you do when there's a bat that's upsetting people? You get the tennis racket, right? I wouldn't. I would try to befriend the bat and escort him out. But this is what happened. A small, sooty bat frantically flies around the fluorescent 10th grade classroom. Of course, someone gets a tennis racket and it's all over. A chirpy student in the front tells the class about the cedar bat house outside his window, the vent-like entrance and cozy chambers, how bats flutter off at dusk and crawl back each morning. One kid hears his mother's bills push through the tin mail slot. Another smells bread burning in the toaster. Another sees her leathery father climbing through their trailer window into his velvet coffin for the day. The quietest girl in the room thinks of all the gloves she's lost, slipping back into the warm pocket of her coat, and that poor little mouse-eared bat who couldn't find his way home. I do, like many of you, I love nature, and I love birds and fish. And sometimes it's interesting to think about an animal in terms of our human relations to it, in some ways inventing, personifying, but kind of entering the life, but also trying to be true to the life of the animal. This is about a little flycatcher. It's called the black phoebe. And they're around. If you're a birder, you know the phoebe. And I enjoyed reading and learning about birds, and I was thinking about a relationship, and so I kind of entered the life of the bird. I fly to you, Phoebe, picking ants from counter spills of sweet vermouth, willow kissing, pinching spiders off gauzy panes in the empty theater where we mask for fun, pressing the dark rafters with our molting. Surprised to see me wintering in the park? Flycatcher lean and sorry-winged. You know my call, my want you. Under the car-thumped bridge, mud stucco us a nest, and I'll sing you fat with twisted bees. Lay white eggs and stay bird with me. Sometimes imagination is a kind of intoxication, and sometimes intoxication is a kind of imagination. I enjoy drinking. Often it's positive, sometimes it's a struggle, but it enters my poems a lot, and trying to be honest about it and think about it. And so this is a poem called Our Drinking. We trip on eggshells and swab our knees with gin, caps spinning until our talked-off heads sag like diapers. Noon cleanups, the missing acres of last night, lights left on, gate open, dog run off, memories wince, and a stalled Jeep, asleep on the back seat, the sweet child we never had. Our drinking. Sometimes I approach drinking in a very playful, or maybe a self-consciously playful way. Of course we all recycle, and we have our recycle bins, and every 2 weeks the glass goes out, and in Monmouth it's a yellow, very conspicuous yellow bin. And sometimes I'm really embarrassed about my bin. It's like, there's a lot of bottles in there. And I'm like, people walk by, like, 2 weeks? Like, that's just two weeks? So, this is kind of true, because sometimes, so then I take it to the recycled place myself. I don't want to put it out on the street. So, so again, sometimes we need to be honest, right, in our poems. This is called recycling. Embarrassed to set this on the curb, I back up to the glass-only dumpster at Brandt's Recycling, pop the trunk, lift my sticky yellow plastic bin of empty wine, beer, and vodka bottles, and tip it into the sour green steel. God, what a noise. Have you ever done this? It's the most incredible sound. I now wear, earplugs when I dump my, because I think it's worse than actually the drinking, maybe. I've been doing damage to my ears. I don't know. It's an incredible sound in that metal. It's really bizarre. Again, relationships, also a subject I like to write about, sometimes very seriously, sometimes more playfully, sometimes allegorically, as in this poem called A Good Couple. Good Couple. Naked in bed their first year, the young magician saws his wife the way she likes. She plays flute, brews coffee, and scrambles eggs he praises. He's an illusionist, but one day she's really cut in half. Work, love, then halved again. More work, children. She's barely there, but the show goes on. They wear pajamas and try to read more at night, falling asleep after a couple pages. These poems are from a new collection that will be coming out from Lost Horse Press late in this year. And the title of the book is called Sergeant Dark. Sergeant Dark. So he appears a few times in the collection. And this is a poem about Sergeant Dark. And he's a veteran, but he's very fit and strong, middle-aged, and he's going to join the fight in Ukraine, which, as you know, many veterans have done. It's extraordinary. But this is called Sergeant Dark joins the International Legion for Defense of Ukraine. And there is such a legion. Still kickboxing at 50, scaling scree on sore knees, range-firing rounds that squared his stance. First just war since Big Two, he tells me over a beer. He tracks Russian tanks across his screen, artillery in the elms, drones, rubble, a roofless winter schoolgirl cradling a kitten, purring under rocket-clawed skies. After his last shift, he asks Lily to lead the union, Tim to take his droopy dog. Embassy interviews, visas, extra socks and meds, brushing sand off his battle rattle. He packs his helmet, body armor, tactical gloves, juicy fruit, and a rabbit's foot his late mother gnawed from her purse. Sergeant Dark prays to all gods, helps a neighbor change a tire, holds open the post office door for a moldy pair who hates America. He drops by to return my fly rod. Take it with you, I say. You never know. And I did hear from someone who was in Ukraine before the war that there was excellent fly fishing in the Carpathian Mountains. I'd like to go there after the war, and maybe I can help. I'd like to do that. I do like to travel. I came back from a place that was very peaceful in some ways, but also dramatic and frightening in other ways. It's Antarctica. In October, November, I traveled to Antarctica and had a wonderful experience. And of course, like any of us would do, right? We write poems about new things in our lives. And one of the things, Antarctica has this, dramatic history of exploration. And it's very much heroic and imperial and masculine. Shackleton's Great Adventure, and some of you know these stories. And I just think how that's kind of entangled in the problem that we're experiencing with climate change and melting and the changing map of Antarctica. And, the whiteness, it just occurs to me, Antarctica is very white. Now, physically, right? But just as Melville plays with the whiteness of the whale in Moby Dick, a wonderful chapter, he explores the implications of whiteness culturally in terms of race. I like to play with this a little bit, and some of these great explorers like Larson, Ross, Shackleton, there are big ice shelves named after them, okay? And these ice shelves are disappearing. Far off the white continent, an iceberg looks pearly white, drifting in the global free market of warm returns. But up close you see stolen jade and sapphire, penguin poo and gravel slur, old snowflakes pressed into nostalgia for the hard, cold shelf they fell from. Larson, Ross, Shackleton, ghosts weeping over fading namesakes, anxious faces, white as ice sheets, inking white names on white maps we keep having to erase. Here's another poem. Zodiac cruise, you have your ship, you got about 100 passengers, and you take these Zodiacs, these inflatable boats, and explore the coast and the bay. Adorable, people say, watching the tuxedo toboggan and Charlie Chaplin waddle of penguins. They hop and slide off rocks across the ice-shagged bay, a few suddenly churning back to shore, one clamped in the yellow-toothed jaws of a leopard seal. Its spotted roll and pit bull headshake rip skin from flesh, spraying blood on a white apron. A German woman next to me roots for another penguin, panicking away until it too disappears in a pink swirl of downy bubbles. Kelp gulls circle, and the seal bobs for one last look as we motor back to the warm ship for cocktails, appetizers, and roast chicken. A South African couple say they're glad to see all this before it's gone. A man from California nods, totally worth it. The German woman glances under the table. I miss my dog, she says. On melting pack ice, miles away, the leopard seal nurses her pup. It was really exciting seeing leopard seals. Thank you. And it is, because penguins are so cute and adorable. But it's like the animal, it's like the wildlife shows you watch on television. They got to eat. So we watched these leopard seals feast on these penguins. It was extraordinary. We have some anglers in the room, some people who love to fish, fly fish. This is a poem that speaking of animals and predation, I love cats. I have 2 cats, and they do go outside, and occasionally they kill birds, mostly juncos and sparrows. I hope you're not too upset with me. But I also enjoy fly fishing and sometimes tying flies. And, there's most fly fishermen practice catch and release in many situations, which, is a very good conservation measure, but in itself is somewhat paradoxical. Think about that. You're right, really trying to catch a fish, and if it's a big fish, you have to play it. It's quite a challenge to get it in, and then you let it go, perhaps to catch again. What is that? Is that civilized fishing, or is that more savage? I'm not sure. Maybe my cat has the answer. I was at my tying bench and watching my cats. Our cat claws a fluttering starling under my tying bench, letting it tumble away to catch and paw again before puncturing the bird's starry crown, chewing, head cocked sideways, eyes squeezed shut, feather-mouthed, pleased. What can I do? Shake my head, turn back to the vise, tie in a dark feather, sever the tip, sweep back the barbs, wrapping hackled magic. For a trout, I will hook, play, land, let go. Let go again, maybe eat, maybe. I'll read just a couple more. It's a great audience, thank you. It's beautiful to be in this room surrounded by art. It's a really lovely space. Again, thinking about pollution, climate change, our environment, I look for analogies to maybe help me figure it out. And I'm sure many of you enjoy wine. And as you know, wine is the result of waste, essentially, right? The yeast is feeding on sugars, and its waste is in alcohol that reaches a certain point until it kills the yeast and it's managed properly. I mean, it's a fascinating kind of, biological phenomena. And so I'm thinking, well, let's see, how does this relate to us? So this is called Who Will Drink Us? Crush grapes and the yeast feast, sweet swirling and dividing delight until their own tanked wastes kill them. Press, barrel, time, and luck, and you've got love's fuel. The others drilled from the earth, pumped and refined for our long drives, past factories and the power plant, pretty pastures grazing cattle, to the rolling vineyards, the air-conditioned tasting room, and handsome labels pressed on green glass. We sip, smile, and select, carry a bottle into the garden and pour. Red spirits swirl blithely around the clear crystal under the planet's steamier dome. What heady wastes we leave. Who will drink us? My last poem is about Jesus. And I read this with some reservation. But I'm going to partially blame my colleague, Ryan Topper, who is here. Ryan is a professor of literature at Western Oregon, and he's a very good Bible scholar. And we enjoy discussing biblical literature and stories. And he told me this story about, he started with biology, then I consulted him but there's an interesting symbiotic relationship between fig wasps and figs. Do you know about this? You know this, of course. Eleanor knows all these things. And an individual wasp, has to enter the developing fig and pollinates and, so allows that fig to blossom and produce fruit, at the same time giving itself its eggs a future. So a little fig dies in the fig blossom. So this made me think of Jesus cursing the fig tree. It's one of those moments in the Bible that's always puzzled me. You know, okay, maybe you know the passage. Just a poor, out-of-season Palestinian tree. But everyone heard him, frustrated and hungry. May no one ever eat your fruit again. Still fuming, he trashed the temple, routed vendors, pissed off priests and their legal teams. Down the road next morning, it was like the devil sprayed Agent Orange. Rabbi, look, Peter shouted. The fig tree you cursed has withered. And Jesus said, if you sincerely pray for something, it will happen. No one had the chutzpah to ask about the innocent. Jesus may have seen this coming. If you hold anything against the person, forgive them. I forgive you, Jesus. There was a price on your head, and you were super stressed, destined like the fig wasp to the world's hard becoming. Wings torn, antenna bent, pollinating, laying eggs, dying sticky and entombed. The fig ripens purply sweet, and the future buzzes free. So I hang a big leaf over my urges and preach a new parable. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Wasn't that terrific? So there's 2 lists in the back. If you want to read on the open mic, sign up on the open mic list. And if you want to be on the mailing list, sign up on the mailing list. There's cookies in the back, so eat the cookies. So I don't have to eat the cookies. I've already been eating them. I've eaten more than half a dozen already. So, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes or so for the open mic.